Hello, welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie and this is episode 153. We are at the very beginning of March, year 2026, and I have a projects update video for you today. I have a few finished projects, a lot of works in progress, a few books that I have finished, an update on my cookie bingo, and yeah, I think everything for the projects are all knit today, and we'll see how far we get through them all. I was just thinking as I was compiling all the stuff for today's episode that maybe I need to break this down into two different episodes just to make it more manageable on my end for editing and time and all of that. So we'll see how far I get. This may end up being all in one episode, but it may be broken up into two. I think it has been about a month and a half or so since the last time I did a project updates video, and there have been two finished featured project videos since then. I think I showcased the harvest flower sweater that I knit as a cardigan, and I also showcased the metropolitan pullover that I embellished with duplicate stitching, and that is one that I'm wearing today. In that video, I had said I wasn't adding any more duplicate stitching to it, and then I added more duplicate stitching to it. If you're new here, the way I usually organize these project updates video is we go through an intro, welcome section. I kind of give you a breakdown of how things are run here, and then we go into finished projects, which sometimes includes what I am wearing, and then works in progress, and then an eats and reads section where I share with you things that I've read, things I've baked or cooked, and then sometimes there's a food for thought section at the end where I share with you something that's been in my mind, on my heart. Oftentimes it's related to making because making is part of my 24/7, but sometimes it's just more of a general life thoughts. And sometimes there's quote unquote homework involved. Not really homework because I am not here to tell you what to do, what to think, what to make. It's just something to maybe think about or something that I just feel like sharing and maybe you feel like doing something about it. I include links to things that I talk about in the description box below the video. If it's for a specific designer, I will try to link to their website if they have a website. I do use Ravelry for my knit and crocheted items, so you will see Ravelry project pages linked down below. You can click on that CC button for the closed captioning, and YouTube also allows you to adjust the speed should I speak faster or slower than your preferences. I do often include visuals on the screen, either to correct something that I have mistakenly said, or provide additional clarification, or just provide additional visual aid. So if you are doing something else, I just want you to make note that there will sometimes be things on the screen. I think that is everything I wanted to encompass in this intro welcome section. Let's get into finished projects. Since the last time we talked, I believe that was middle of January or so, I had shared two finished featured project videos, and that is the harvest flower sweater that I converted into a steeked cardigan. That original pattern is by YeJi Made Design, and so if you're interested in that project, I would go to that video for all the details. I also share some styling options with it as well. The other project I shared is the Metropolitan Pullover by Tori Yu, and that is my third version of this pattern. If you want to learn all the details, I would go to that video. Today I am wearing that Metropolitan Pullover, and I had added additional embellishment to it since that video was published, and hopefully they are showing here on the screen for you. Oh my hands are very dry. I should probably go put on some lotion. I'll be right back. Much better. I don't know about you, but in the winter, my hands get so dry. It kind of feels like Velcro on everything. It's got this very irritating sandpapery feel and sound. I don't like it. And my fingers tend to crack, so I always have band-aids on my fingers. Anyway, spring is coming, and hopefully that means my skin won't be as dry. What were we talking about? Metropolitan pullover. So this is my Metropolitan pullover. I love it. It is so much fun. It's this neutral with fun, whimsical duplicate stitching in bright, bold colors. The yarns I used are Patton's Classic Wool Worsted for the gray in, I think it's called Natural Mix. It's this warm gray, and then I paired that with Pearl Soho's Tussock mohair in silver needle, which is like a very light silver mohair. And then I used Pearl Soho's paintbrush mohair, and in multiple colors. Direct you to that other video to get all the details. Love how it turned out. The mohair that I used for the duplicate stitching is a bulky or chunky weight mohair that has a cotton core through it. That's what the white is, and I thought that blended in really nicely with how the marling showed up in the rest of the fabric. So I just love this piece. I think it's so much fun, and yeah, all the details are in that other video, so go check it out if you are interested in learning some more. I have 3 finished projects to share with you. Here are a pair of leg warmers, and I did not follow a pattern for this. I think they are so much fun, and these are for my daughter. And let me pull up my notes on it. Since I didn't follow a pattern, I will just briefly tell you what I did in case you are interested in making some for yourself or for a knit-worthy person in your life. I think these took me about 2 weeks to do. They were easy to knit on just on the go, which is great because it's a smaller project, and also it didn't require a lot of concentration. So I think I started on this smaller end here. I used a US 6 or 4 millimeter needle. I cast on 48 stitches, and I did a knit to purl to rib for 17 rounds, which looks like it's about maybe 2.5 or 3 inches. And then I switched to a US 8 or 5 millimeter needle, and I increased every, I think, 12th stitch until I got to 52 stitches. So I increased it by 4 stitches, and that gave me 52 stitches, and I knit that for 60 rounds of stockinette. And then for this second cuff, I continued in the main needles, and I knit a 2x2 rib for 7 rounds. Then I did 2 rounds of just knit, and then I bound off knitwise. The yarns I used are Wool of the Andes, worsted weight, non-superwash in Haze Heather. I think I brought the tag and the remaining yarn with me. I had 2 50-gram amounts of the yarn, so I used 1 per leg and just knit them in tandem. It's 100% Peruvian Highland wool. It is not superwash, and this Haze Heather colorway is a heathered lavender, cool-toned lavender. And this yarn comes in 110 yards for 50 grams. And then I just held that with leftover fingering sock weight yarn from previous projects. I just gathered some that were in a similar color family, speckled, tonal, and I believe there's some sparkle in here too. One has silver stellina and one has bronze. I'm not sure it's going to show up on camera unless you have direct sunlight hitting it, but it just adds a little bit of magic to it. And I think they are so much fun. I did not measure the gauge on them. I had knit my daughter another pair of leg warmers years ago. Actually, they were mine and then eventually went to her. Maybe I might have knit those like over 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. And I just used that to kind of measure about how wide we wanted it, how long we wanted it. These are going to be so cute, worn all scrunched up, and it's perfect for spring when you are hoping it's warmer than it actually is, so you want to wear skirts or shorts and it's not quite that warm. And so I feel like these will be so cute worn with skirts and tennis shoes and just give a little bit of extra warmth, and they're easy to take off if it does end up getting really warm. But you can wear them in either direction. So if you want there to be more of a cinched in look on the bottom, just wear the smaller cuff on the bottom. This can still kind of scrunch down. And if you rather them stay up more, then the tighter cuff can be worn on the top part of the leg with the wider part on the bottom. I really like that option because depending on what you're wearing or how you want it to look, you can just flip it whichever direction you want. And the amount of yarn I used was 157 grams total, so about 100-ish grams in the worsted weight yarn, which just used up all of the 2 50-gram amounts that I had, and then the fingering weight yarn was about 55-ish grams total. So I think this is a great way to play with different colors, to use up leftover yarns that you might have, and it is a fun gift. So these are leg warmers. The next project I'm going to share with you are a pair of socks. These are also not for me. And this is yarn by Kim Dyes Yarn, based in, I think, Virginia. And I love Kim's yarn. She dyes beautiful colors, wonderful variegated colorways, and it always knits out so nicely. And I don't get any weird zigzag pooling, which I don't particularly love. And I like when my two socks look a little more similar. And sometimes with highly variegated yarns, if you knit the two socks, they don't always look the same. Like the pooling sometimes differs. I would think that because of the gauge is the same and the stitch count is the same, that they should look relatively similar, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And that is something that would bother me. But with Kim Dyes Yarn, I have not had that issue, and I just really wanted to knit up some highly variegated yarn. It is such a delight to work up, and it's like a party in your shoes. So I knit these cuff down. This is a 400 yards for 100 gram yarn, 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. This is a one-of-a-kind colorway. I bought it on clearance in December 2025 for $15, not including shipping. I used US 1 2.25 millimeter needles for an 8 stitches per inch gauge. I cast on 60 stitches, I knit 2 rounds, and then I did a knit 2, purl 2 rib for 20 rounds. I did stockinette for 50 rounds, and then I did the mini gusset for a shadow wrap short row heel, and I followed those instructions from the Descent socks. And that adds, I don't think I did the full gusset amount, but it adds about 8 rounds on the top part of the foot, which then prevents the fabric from stretching excessively on that part compared to the rest of the sock. So it evens out the way the negative ease is distributed throughout the sock. And I just find it really comfortable. I'm not sure I would do it on a self-striping sock yarn unless I wanted a contrast color in the heel and to have that band across the top. I think that could still look really cool. I don't know if I've done that yet. I might try it on a future sock. However, I do really like it when it's used on tonal yarn, or in this case, the variegated yarn. It turned out great. So you might be able to see these increases and decreases here, creating a bit of a right angle, maybe a little bigger than a right angle. And then I did the shadow wrap short row heel. It created a little bit of a bullseye effect on the heel, which is really fun. And then I did 70 rounds, which measures to be about 7.5 inches from the back of the heel and ends at the top of the pinky toe. And then for the toe, I did a rounded toe. So I alternated the decrease round with a knit even round until I got to 18 stitches on top, 18 stitches on bottom. Then I decreased every round until I got to 10 stitches and 10 stitches, and then I grafted that together. So I knit everything on a US 1 2.25 millimeter needle, 9-inch circulars, and then for the toe, I switched to a 32-inch magic loop. That's just how I prefer to do my socks, and it works for me. So in total, I used 72 grams of yarn for these socks, and I have saved the remaining 35 grams of yarn to knit myself a pair of shorty socks. I am using a contrast yarn for that so that I can use up all of the remaining variegated yarn, and I'm so excited for them. I will share that with you after I share this next finished project real quick. The last finished project I want to share with you, I'm just going to share with you very briefly. It is a test knit, and it comes out middle of March, and I would like to showcase it more after the pattern releases. So this is the Prospect Tee by Tori Yu. And here is my version. I knit the second size for more positive ease for the range that's recommended. It's on the higher end of the positive ease because personally for warmer weather, I prefer a little more ease just to have more airflow. And I chose a yarn that is machine washable and dryable. And to me, that's really important for warmer weather because of sunscreen, sweat, bug spray, all the things, and I want to be able to just throw it into the washing machine and throw it into the dryer. If I don't have it dry the whole time, that's fine, but summer tends to be a little more humid, so if I lay things out to dry, it can take a very long time. So this yarn is Pearl Soho's Santalina base. This colorway is Pink Violet. I bought it during one of the discontinued colorways sample spring cleaning type of sales. I believe I got this one in 2025, and the colorway is Pink Violet. The Santalina yarn comes in 328 yards for 100 grams, 70% organically grown cotton, 20% rayon from bamboo, and 10% hemp. So I bought 3 hanks of 100 grams each for a total of $35. And I ended up using 240 grams of this yarn, totaling to be about 785 yards. It is a high hip length, and I love the texture. I am knitting the Prospect pullover as well, and I was actually thinking that once I finish that, maybe I will do a video of both the tee and the pullover together to just showcase how like one textured pattern can look so different in a pullover using wool versus a tee using non-wool fibers. And depending on when I finish that pullover, we'll see when that video comes out. But I just love this. It is so drapey and soft, and I am looking forward to wearing it in a couple of months when it gets warmer. So that is the Prospect Tee by Tori Yu, pattern coming middle of March. On to the works in progress section. I think I have like 6 different works in progress to share with you. And I'm not going to go into super detail, although I feel like those are famous last words. I feel like I always say that and then I ramble into all the details. But I'm going to try really hard not to do that this time. Not because I don't think they're important, but because I feel like I will be going over all those things again. I just don't feel like going through all that detail today. So we're going to see if I'm going to be my own worst enemy. The first project I'm going to share with you are the pair of socks I said I cast on using the leftover yarn from the other pair of socks that I showed. And here is the yarn. This is what I have left. Oopsies. It is so pretty caked up with all these purples, reds, fuchsia, pinks, oranges. And let me untangle this yarn. I finished the cuffs and I used Lang Yarn's Jewel Superwash. This is a beautiful royal cobalt blue color. This yarn comes in 50 grams. It is a superwash yarn. I believe it's made in Italy. It's 75% virgin wool, 25% nylon. I bought it from Wool & Co. and the yarn comes with a spool of nylon thread inside for extra reinforcement. I'm going to try that on this one. I'm going to do it, I think, on the heel and on the toes. I tend to wear out my socks there on the base of the heel and then like the ball of my foot by the toe, which doesn't tend to be where I start knitting the toe. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stripe in some of this blue before I get to the toe and just see if I can line that up with where the ball of my foot is and add the nylon in there. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if this blue has a color name, but here's the back of the tag. Hopefully it's in focus and you will see the color number there. I thought this blue would look really fun with this variegated yarn. So here are the cuffs. I did a knit 2, purl 1 cuff just to change it up. And I will be doing the rest of it in stockinette. There's no deadline on these. I would love to have them ready to wear in the springtime. So maybe end of March they'll be done. I don't know. This project goes into my purse, so I can just pick it up and knit on it whenever I have a few minutes. Next work in progress is using my February Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad Sock Set yarn. This is a yarn subscription. I signed up for the whole year, and then each month you get a sock set. 100 grams of fingering weight yarn plus 20 grams in a coordinating color. And this year's theme is an exploration of color. You basically know what each month's colorway is going to be or be similar to because of the way this year is set up. So you have this journal and it shows you each month the color inspiration. So here is February's. This month's base is Bighorn Sock, which is 75% 19.5 micron superwash merino and 25% nylon. It's a light fingering weight yarn. It comes in 463 yards for 100 grams. I have knit with this yarn before. It's very soft. I feel like it knits up very thin. I think I've made it into a camisole in the past. I don't remember if I've knit it into socks. I prefer this yarn knit up double for socks. I just feel like it's more durable and I can wear them as house socks or boot socks or hiking socks, really anything. And so I am knitting a pair of 2x2 rib socks on US 3.25 millimeter needles. The pattern is Everyday Socks by Tin Can Knits. That pattern comes in multiple rib options and a huge range of sizes, newborn through, I don't know, newborn through multiple adult sizes. And so I am holding the yarn double. I have my yarn caked up in two so that I can knit them in tandem. And so basically this means I'll knit 10 rounds on one, 10 rounds on the other, and they'll just keep playing catch up with each other. So when I finish, I have a pair of socks. I don't feel like I have to start all over again by casting on the second sock. So here are my socks. I want a really long leg. And at the end, if I run out of the main color or feel like I'm about to run out of the main color, I will add in stripes with this maroon color, which is the contrast color it came with. I really like this rich red paired with the maroon. I think it looks very nice, very classy, not in your face, but there's kind of like a subtle elegance to it, and I really like how it looks. These socks go with the treadmill. I have them in this drawstring bag, so I cinch it up so just the yarn comes through the top so the ball of yarn doesn't go flying everywhere. I'm a fast walker on the treadmill, I don't run. So we'll see when this gets done. I just knit on it when I'm on the treadmill. The next project I'm going to share with you is another sweater that I'm embellishing with duplicate stitching. I had hinted at it in the episode where I shared my Metropolitan pullover, and I will show it to you now. I'm not done yet, I'm still working on it. I'm going to show you the 3 yarns that I'm using for the embellishment. This paintbrush mohair yarn was kindly provided to me by Pearl Soho. So thrilled to be working with it because it's nothing like I've ever used. Being 120 yards for 50 grams, a chunky, bulky, worsted weight mohair with a cotton core, it feels way more substantial than lace weight mohair, and I just feel like there are more options to play. And the name paintbrush just delights me so much. Here are my colors. This red is an orange leaning red called Wild Strawberry. And then we have these 2 colors that I can't remember the name of, so hold please. This dusty lavender color is called Lilac Mauve. And this light blue on the bottom is called Forget Me Not Blue. The Forget Me Not Blue has a slight tinge of lavender compared to the sky blue that's in the sleeve of my Metropolitan pullover here. I'm gonna hold it closer in case you want that color comparison. The sweater that I am embellishing is a lento that I knit a few years ago. That lento I used Shoba's Serendipitous wool fingering weight yarn that's 100% Highland wool, and I paired it with Pearl Soho's Tussock in Anjou pear. And there was some pooling of the speckling that I didn't love. I tried covering it with some duplicate stitching using just the fingering weight yarn, but it wasn't enough to really break up the speckling. I thought this was a perfect opportunity to use that canvas for duplicate stitching. Are you ready to see it? Here we are. So it's still a work in progress. I've done this giant flower here over the shoulder. I will say that because on this one I went into the armpit area, it is slightly bulky over there. However, I have not blocked this yet, so maybe it will relax and be a little less bunchy, but it's not too bad. And I am also adding in these little bits of rectangles, and I may do some vertical rectangles as well in the Wild Strawberry color. I think on the back you can still see some of that pooling there because I haven't broken up that middle section. It's this dark speckling that seems to be showing up more in the pooling. And there was a pretty significant chunk in the front center that I wanted to break up, so I'm doing that with the flowers and the rectangles. How I draw out my duplicate stitching, it's all free-handed, so I just use yarn to draw in my outline, and then as I duplicate stitch, I just take out that outline. So it helps me kind of plan out where I want my pieces to be, and it's easy to remove and just move things around as I want to. But that's kind of how I eyeball it for balance and where I want the color and the shapes to go. I haven't decided if I'm going to add any to the sleeves yet. I might not. With duplicate stitching, it means I can start and stop whenever I want. So that's where I'm at with this, and I love how it looks. I think it's so much fun. So no deadline for this. I'll finish it whenever I finish it, and I look forward to wearing it when it is done. 3 more works in progress to go. This next one I talked about starting, I think, in January, but the yarn hadn't arrived yet, and I was looking forward to making it for spring. That is the Winter Soul by Adorable Knits. The designer's name is Dorothy. I have since started and made a ton of progress. I will say it was slow going in the beginning because it's a new to me designer, and every time I try new to me designers' patterns, I have to familiarize myself with their pattern writing style. Because I tend to knit from the same designers, I know what to expect when I jump in. I know the flow of how things go. And for this one, not only is it a new to me designer and their writing style is different, but I'm also trying a new method. So I have wanted to knit an all over color work raglan yoke construction. And so this was my first time doing that. And typically I do color work that's in a round yoke construction, or maybe it's just in the body portion, not in the top section. But this one you have to do the raglan shaping and the color work simultaneously. So that was tricky in itself. I think it looks really cool, but I definitely think it takes a little more brain power. There were multiple charts to have to go between. The pattern is extremely wordy. There's a lot explained. I think that can be good, but also it's a lot to sift through. And all the different sizes have different charts, which is great. But again, it's a lot of information to sift through. I can't remember how long the pattern is, but it's pretty extensive. I will note that anytime I messaged the designer, which was a couple of times for questions, she always responded very promptly and professionally. So that was really nice to have that communication. The Winter Soul sweater has over 100 projects currently on Ravelry. It retails at €9.50 or $11.71 USD. It was published in November of 2025. It comes in sizes XS to 5XL, and that finishes at a measurement of 37 inches to 67 inches finished. And the recommended ease is also given, and the recommendations for bust or chest circumference compared to the finished garment circumference is also given. There's a lot of information given for you to decide if this is going to be a pattern that's for you prior to purchasing the pattern. It is written for 2 colors, and it's all over stranded color work knit top down. My friend YeJi had made this earlier, and I loved her version, and I decided that I wanted to make one. I was going to knit it into a cardigan jacket edition because it's worsted weight all over color work, and I just felt like it was going to get a lot more use in my rotation of clothes if I did it as a cardigan slash jacket. I'm saying cardigan slash jacket because all over worsted weight is pretty hefty to me, and I feel like it will function more like a jacket than a cardigan, but you know, it's kind of interchangeable. Because of the way this pattern is constructed, I could not figure out how I was going to get my beginning of round in the center and add in like 5 or 7 stitches down the middle for that panel where I'm going to cut. So I just decided to follow the pattern as is, as a pullover, and then just cut into the color work in the center. The button bands are going to add that extra panel in the middle, so even though I lose like 5 or 7 stitches in the middle, depending on how big I make that panel, it'll be fine in the long run. Plus, I'm choosing a size that has more ease. I think I end up with about 8 inches of positive ease, that if I lose an extra inch in the middle, I'll be okay. And because of that button band that I will be knitting, and I get to choose how wide I want that button band to be, I can make up for that extra width that I'm losing from cutting it open. The yarns I'm using are Cascade 220. It's a non-superwash 100% Peruvian Highland wool. Again, I purchased this from Wool & Company. So the colorways I'm using are Crabapple, which is this mauve pink-brown color, and Peach Dust, which is a very pale peachy pink color. The lighter color is my contrast, and the darker color is my main color. Now I will say that also threw me for a loop because the designer had that flipped where her main color was light and dark was the contrast, which meant all the charts are written for their sample dark and light, and that just kept messing me up. I had to rip back so many times because my brain kept flipping the two. And so finally I was able to print it out where I flipped the color dominance, I guess. I don't know what you call it. But I flipped it so that the dark was light and the light was dark, and that made a huge difference. It also just made it easier once I got past the top section where I had to reference multiple charts at once. But it did take a while. I would not say that this is a pattern to take on the go or to do with interruptions. At least I couldn't. Maybe you can. I could not. Thankfully, I'm done with all of that, and I've just got the sleeves to go, which hopefully only have one chart, but we'll see what happens. Here we are. This has been wet blocked already prior to me picking up the button band because I wanted to make sure the sizing was all what I wanted it to be. Not that I would rip back and start over, but that way I had a little more information going into knitting the button band and how much I would need to potentially adjust for and all of that. So I'm so pleased with how the color work looks. It's very even. I used a US 6 4mm needle for the entire thing aside from the ribbing. The ribbing I used a US 4, which is a 3.5mm needle. These are different needle sizes than recommended in the pattern. I believe the designer uses a US 8 for the color work and a US 6 for the stockinette and a US 2.5 for the ribbing, which I was not going to do using this worsted weight yarn. I think Cascade 220 is classified as worsted, but I think it's more like a light worsted maybe, and I really like how this is looking. I have my sleeve stitches on hold and I have live needles on the button band portion. I've already done my crochet reinforcement down the center, and I knit my neckband and my body hem prior to picking up for the button band. I think it looks very tidy. I'm gonna see if I can hold up this with the button band closed so you can see the pickup better. This is the side with the button holes. I think it looks really tidy and I'm so pleased with how it looks. I think I've got another row or two before I bind off this button band here, and then I'll pick up to do the other side, and then I will cut it open. I will also use my sewing machine to run a straight stitch down both sides of that crochet reinforcement just for additional reinforcement there, and then I'll cut it open. And then my next step will just be to knit the sleeves. I'm going to knit the sleeves as written, so no decreases. It's just like a wide sleeve down, and we'll see where it hits. If it hits 3/4 length or bracelet length, I'm okay with that. I will just have to see where we go with that, because with a wide sleeve, I don't think I want that to be really long or to cover my palm. I think I just want it to hit a little higher than my wrist, and I think it will be perfect for spring. So I'm really looking forward to getting this done by the end of March. I think I can do it. I think I can do it. So this is the winter sole converted into a cardigan. The next project I'm going to share with you. This is The Classic by Melissa Clulow. Clulow? I'm sorry, Melissa. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I can spell it, but I don't know how to pronounce it. And this pattern was written for Espace Tricot when she used to be the other half of Espace Tricot. And I don't know if the pattern is still available for free right now, but it used to be for free. And that's when I got it. I will have a picture of what it looks like here on the screen. It is like a turtleneck, funnel neck, raglan, oversized, ethereal looking classic pullover. And I think I cast mine on in December or January when it was really, really cold. This is knit on US 6 4mm needles. The yarn I'm using is provided by Purl Soho for yarn support, and I am loving this combo so much. I'm using good wool, 100% Andean Highland wool, which is a sport weight wool, non-superwash, and I'm using heirloom white, which is an undyed creamy natural color, and I have it paired with Purl Soho Tussock, which is a 60% super fine kid mohair with 40% silk. And that color is Pink Fog, which is a cool toned light pink. I feel like the cool toned light pink plus the warmer white together is a beautiful pairing. I just wanted something that was soft and neutral. I will say that the beginning took a while because it's twisted rib for many inches in that neckline, but it looks really nice. If I was going for neutral, ethereal, classic, elegant looking, I think I achieved that with this pattern and yarn combo. There are short rows in the pattern that are worked into the raglan increases. It is a little bit confusing because it's knit a little differently than how I'm used to, and I think there are several people who have commented that it's super confusing. Personally, I just drew out where the different markers were supposed to be, and I just read that part several times, and it worked out just fine. Don't come to me for pattern support though. I am not going to be able to explain it any differently than how she explained it. I thought it was just fine. I don't know who provides pattern support for this pattern now since she doesn't work there anymore, but it's still available as a pattern, so I don't really know. So I don't know where to direct you, but don't come to me for it because I am already past that and I don't remember anymore. I am almost done with the top increase section, and I hope to split for sleeves this week. And then it'll just be round and round stockinette, which is great because I need a project that is round and round stockinette to leave in the car for when I am waiting for the kids for various things, and that I can pick up and put down whenever and not have to think about it or figure out where I am. These kind of projects are perfect for that situation. All right, we are on to the last work in progress for today. In this bag is the Gramercy Tee by Tori Yu. Gramercy? Gramercy? You know how sometimes you say a word over and over again and it doesn't sound like a word anymore? Now I can't think of whether it is said Gramercy or Gramercy. This tee I am knitting out of Amy Scher's new in-house yarn base. So exciting. Now this yarn is called Comfort Silk Linen. I'll put a picture here on the screen so you can see all the colorways that it comes in. This yarn is 50% merino wool, 22.5 micron, super soft, 25% linen, 25% mulberry silk. It is 100 grams, 400 yards, made in Peru. This is a hand wash yarn and it is so soft and drapey in hand. I feel like it knits up closer to a light fingering weight gauge versus a true fingering weight gauge, even though it comes at 400 yards because of the silk and the linen. The silk and linen make it so that it doesn't quite puff up as much as a full wool fiber yarn would. And so I feel like to get a fabric that isn't super gapey, you might have to go down a needle size than you typically would for a fingering weight yarn. Now you may not have to. I'm just saying, personally for me, I went down to a US 3.25 millimeter needle where I might knit a fingering weight garment on a US 4 to achieve a fabric that isn't too gapey, but still drapey. And so that's where I'm at with this. The yarns were provided to me from Amy to help launch this new yarn. The undyed colorway is Milk Tea, and the beautiful springy bright green is Jasmine Tea. There is a heathering to it because the linen and silk don't take up the dye the same way that the merino wool does. And you might be able to see a little bit of a halo sticking out. And the yarn might appear a little shiny from the silk. So when I initially cast on, I cast on using a US 4. I felt like the material was just too gapey, and there is some bounce and recovery, but again, because it isn't a full wool yarn, it's not going to be super fluffy, so it comes out a little bit more stringy. I would say that this can be compared to Pearl Soho's linen quill, but much, much softer. So if the alpaca might give you a little bit of an itch factor from the linen quill, I would try this. I feel like it knits up similarly in fabric and drape. However, this is way softer than the linen quill. You get the same kind of heathered look to it because of the linen content that's in here and the yarn has similar qualities, I would say. However, again, this is just a lot softer. The tee that I'm knitting is a top-down V-neck, and it comes in a short sleeve and a long sleeve version. I actually purchased yarn in August for a fall long sleeve version. However, I never got to it, and so I will knit that this year. But first, I'm knitting this spring summer version. Here is mine. I love how fresh and crisp this looks. I think this undyed color is cooler than some other undyed ones where it looks way more yellow or creamy. I feel like this white sits a little closer to true white, but definitely not like bright white. So if you're looking for an undyed white that's not as yellow, I feel like this could be a good option. I have knit the neckband on this tee, and I will say that took a long time. I believe I used a US 1. For that, which is a 2.5 millimeter needle, but the ribbing looks nice and tidy, so I'm happy with it. And then the rest of it, I'm using a US 3.25 millimeter needle. This is a saddle shoulder construction. The saddle shoulders were blocked to use as my gauge swatch. So you can see that the fabric is more even there compared to maybe the rest of it where it has not been blocked. I'm going to show you maybe the back. Some of the stitches just don't look as even as other ones, but I think after I block it out, it will be just fine. And once I'm not looking at it like 2 inches from my face, I'm sure it'll look just fine. So I'm very happy with how this is knitting up. It is so drapey and soft. I have a tea Progress Keeper on here that was gifted by Amy a couple of years ago. I thought it matched my project, so I have it on there. And away on the body I go with the striping, and then at some point I'll probably take a break and knit the sleeves. I can't remember if the sleeves are elbow length, but if they aren't, I will probably still knit them to elbow length. So this is a slow going project being knit on very small needles, but I am pleased with how it's going, and I wouldn't be able to wear it until April or May anyway, so I will finish it by the time the warm weather comes. Amy is running their annual make-along. I would recommend you check out their Instagram, newsletter, website, all the things to find out more details. I will be knitting along with you on this tee, and I look forward to seeing what you make along with us. After all of that talk, which is a lot of talk, what I think I'm going to do is I will still do the eats and reads and all of that, but I'm going to record that on a different day and add that into this video. So it will still all be one big video, but I'm just going to break it up for my own sake. That is all for that, and I will see you in a couple of days, but in the same day. Bye! I had mentioned at the end of all the projects that I was going to take a little break and then come back and record the Eats and Reads section. So here we are. I'm currently wearing my Hibernate pullover by Amy Sure Makes, and I felt like it was very springy to wear this heathered lavender today. And I am excited to talk to you about cookies and some books. Okay, so if you watched my previous episode, not the featured finished projects ones, but the ones that have like a number episode with it, I think it would have been 152. I talked about a cookie bingo kind of challenge that I'm doing with two of my closest girlfriends who I consider my sisters. We don't live in the same state anymore. However, we do keep in touch pretty much daily, and we are doing a cookie bingo together. It is based off of the 100 Cookies cookbook by Minneapolis baker Sarah Kiefer. We each picked, I think, five 4, I don't remember, cookies for me to put into a 5x5 grid. And then I put in some free spaces in the center. I put a picture of the cookbook, and then we are baking our way through the bingo card. We have so far baked a lot of the same cookies because one person will say, I'm gonna bake this, and the other person will say, oh, that sounds good, maybe I'll make it too. And the third person will say, well, now I have to make it too. So maybe we'll just black out the whole card, I don't know. Several of them I've actually baked more than once because they were hits in our house and we enjoyed them. So I'm going to put up on the screen here somewhere the ones that I've done already, and I'll read them out because it's probably too small in the graphic to see. So far I've made the brownie cookies, the sables or sables, the mixed berry crumble bars, the Neapolitan cookies, the ginger molasses cookies, the soft chocolate chip cookies, and the French meringues. As usual, I didn't follow the recipes exactly because I rarely do, just like knitting patterns. And oftentimes it's based on what I have at home or just what I feel like eating or whatever the case may be. So most of these I didn't follow exactly, but we loved all of them. So that's great. The most recent one I did was the mixed berry crumble bars. I didn't have fresh blueberries or fresh raspberries or fresh strawberries, which is what the mixed berry part is of these crumble bars. So instead I used frozen blueberries, dried apricots, and fresh apples. Fresh apples I think were in the ingredients, or maybe it was like an optional one, but that I did. We loved them. I think it's one that we could use on rotation. It wasn't too sweet. I don't know if that's because of my substitutions or just it not being super sweet in general. I think it's something that could be used for a brunch because you do bake it in like a big casserole dish. It can be easily cut into however many portions you might need to serve. So yeah, that is where we are with the cookie bingo. On to the books. So if you are new here, the way I usually do this book section is I will have an image of the book on the screen. I'm a very visual person and I oftentimes remember book covers, but not always book titles or authors. So I will have that on the screen as I'm talking about the book, and then that way also if you would like to skip over a certain book, you can just kind of scroll along until that book cover disappears and it switches to a different book cover. I don't tend to give you a book summary because I feel like you can look that up anywhere. I tend to more give my experience of reading that book, if it hit or not for me, and know that I am very much a mood reader. So a book that I might not finish now, I could potentially reach for in another couple of years and love it. So it isn't necessarily a commentary on the quality of a book, but more so an assessment of my experience reading the book and how I reacted to maybe the author's writing style, to the characters, if I got annoyed with the character and just decided I couldn't read anymore, things like that. Future editing Stephanie here to say that after all that talk about not finishing books because I'm a mood reader or if the character annoys me or something like that, I forgot to add the book in this book section that I did not finish. So if this is an awkward edit inserted into this section, that is why. And I wanted to do it as the first book because I actually really enjoyed the other 4 books. So the book that I did not finish is We Who Will Die. The book is the beginning of a series called, I think, First Empire? No, that's wrong. Called Empire of Blood. And it was published December of 2025. It's 423 pages. This is considered adult fantasy romance, and basically it's like Gladiators meets Hunger Games meets vampires. And I was already a little skeptical kind of going into it, but I thought, okay, I'll just give it a chance. None of my other holds were available yet at the library, so I picked this one up and thought I will just give it a go. I have no issues with not finishing books. I return books partially read all the time. And so yeah, I thought, okay, I'll just give it a go, and maybe if my other holds come in, then I will just stop this if it is no fun. Well, I did make it through about halfway. And I decided that this was not for me. It's considered a slow burn romance, but honestly, I feel like it is a no burn romance. There is not really any chemistry. There's always these like brooding male leads that have not really much character or depth to them. And then our female protagonist, I feel like, just isn't like, okay, she's acting out of love for her brothers and her family, but I feel like some opportunities are presented to her that she could have taken and avoided all the conflict, or basically the entire rest of the book, and yet she decides to go make a deal with a vampire, which doesn't really seem like a great idea. I don't think I'm really spoiling anything because all of what I told you happens in like the first couple of pages or something like that. But anyway, I did make it through half the book before I decided that this was not very interesting. I didn't feel like there was a lot of world building that was complex, and the characters just didn't really seem to have much depth to them. That being said, if you are looking for a vampires meets gladiators meets Hunger Games type of book that is entertaining and maybe doesn't require much thinking, or I don't know, this might be your type of book. I'm not saying necessarily it's a bad book. It's just not the book for me, not what I was looking for at the time, and definitely not really uplifting. And so I returned it. That is We Who Will Die. We're going to start with Vera Wang's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This was recommended to me by someone who watches this channel, so thank you so much for recommending the book to me. I loved it. I did request the second book from the library, but I didn't get a chance to read it, and then I had to return it, so I will come back to it in the future. This book was published March 2023, 339 pages. The main character is this 60-year-old woman running a struggling tea shop, and it's based in present-day San Francisco. You get multiple points of views, which I really enjoy. I like books like that, especially if it is done all on the same timeline versus ones that like flip back and forth between not time zones, time frames, time segments. I don't like the ones that jump between the present and past back and forth, but I do like the ones that have multiple points of view within the same timeline. This is classified as adult contemporary fiction. It's cozy mystery. We get themes of connection and belonging, lovable characters with a focus on their insecurities, and definitely the theme of found family. I just loved it. It was hilarious. It was relatable. It was cheesy, but like in a fun way. So even if it was predictable, I still found it entertaining, and I did enjoy the read a lot. So that is Vera Wang's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. The next book I would like to share with you is Days at the Toronka Cafe by Satoshi Yagisawa. This was published November 2013, 240 pages. It's translated Japanese contemporary fiction. The setting is a cozy neighborhood in a quiet Tokyo cafe. You get unexpected connections. People are led to this neighborhood coffee shop by stray cats. You have 3 character-driven stories, and they focus on personal struggles of grief and love and feeling lost. It's got a very floaty, introspective atmosphere to it, and it talks about people trying to find closure, and everything doesn't necessarily wrap up neatly in like a little package, but I left feeling like it was a satisfying read, and I still think about it, and I actually tabbed a couple of passages, and I think I'll read 1 or 2 of them for you. And I don't think they're going to give away any sort of like plot line or anything. I don't necessarily think there's like a plot really in this book, but I want to give you a taste of it. I just want to give you a taste of it. And if you are a fan of Anne of Green Gables, that is mentioned in this book as well. Human beings don't stop loving, no matter how many times they get hurt. I think it's in our nature. So, it's okay for you to love again too. It doesn't have to be some sappy romance either. Love comes in many forms. There's the kind of love you feel for your family, the love for your friends, even for your job or your dreams, or the love for your pet. There's nothing wrong with that either. As long as you're not just dependent and you can proudly call it love, The object of that love can be anything. Sometimes love can save you. And a life without any love at all would be lonely, don't you think? I just loved that passage. Loved it. Okay, here's another little section. My father was the one who named me Shizuku. I asked him once when I was little about the origin of my name. I gave you that name because I hoped you'd turn out like coffee, he said. To make a good cup of coffee, you need to devote your attention to extracting the flavor from the beans. If not, you won't bring out the rich aroma and deeper flavors. But if you do it right, it means that every drop of coffee in the cup will have that concentrated flavor. What I wanted for you was that your life be as rich and satisfying. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. I love it. So that is Days at the Toronka Cafe by Satoshi Yagisawa. The next book I want to share with you is Noodle and Bao by Shayna Liu. It's a graphic novel published in 2024, written by a queer Taiwanese-American author exploring the intersection of art, education, and activism. It's a very whimsical story. It's empowering. We get several dialects of Chinese included. It is written in English, but they do have Chinese characters throughout, and the phonetically written out, I think, of some of the dialects. I can't remember. I think that's what was in there. The topic of gentrification is included. We are in a Chinatown setting inspired by real-life community organizing from Boston, Massachusetts. I really enjoyed this graphic novel. I read it with my fourth grader. Actually, we read it separately and then we talked about it. And we both really enjoyed the book, and I hope you will too. That is Noodle and Bao by Shayna Liu. The last book I'd like to touch on today is The Giver by Lois Lowry, published in 1993, 208 pages, and I actually didn't know that there were 2 more books following The Giver, and so I thought it was a standalone, but it is not. This is considered young adult dystopian science fiction. We are presented with a seemingly perfect utopian society. It functions on conformity and structure, at the loss of emotion and color and choice. I first read this probably decades ago, let's just say that. I definitely process it differently now than I did before because I don't remember the book coming across as so creepy when I read it previously. I feel like with life experiences and also just being a parent now, I read the message of the book completely differently than I would have when I was potentially 12. Something I really enjoyed about the writing style is as we are discovering what is going on in this society through the eyes of Jonah, who is the 12-year-old boy that is the main character in the book. I feel like as he's figuring it out, we are figuring it out with him. It is incredible storytelling when you can see the story unfold through the character's eyes instead of just being told what is happening. And for a book that's describing the lack of emotion and then the stark contrast of having all the emotions, you really feel that through the book. In the beginning, it just feels so empty and lonely and just so devoid of choice, right? Which is the whole point. And then as you read along and things change, it really unfolds and you feel almost an overwhelming sense of emotions and all the things, and it's just written so well, and I didn't appreciate that before when I read it, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago. The Giver is considered a classic. I think it is such an important read. I think it really gets at the discussion of sameness and order and choice and freedoms and perspectives. It just really opens up to so much conversation, and I really enjoyed reading it. I read it alongside my 7th grader, and again, we read it separately, but we talked about it as we were reading through it. So yeah, it was really enjoyable, and I don't know if I'm going to read the 2nd and 3rd books. Maybe I'll have to see if our library has them. It could be interesting to see what the follow-up is to The Giver, since I didn't know there were additional books following. So that is The Giver by Lois Lowry. Okay, I do have a little bit of a food for thought for you today. I think when there is a lot of noise, a lot of chaos, a lot of things that feel out of control, something that really helps to ground me is doing things that are tangible. So whether that is knitting on a sweater and marking my progress so I can see that there is change, that there is growth, that is definitely something that's helpful. Or making little milestones saying, hey, I'm going to knit 20 rounds of a sock today. And then if I reach it, great. If I don't, it's really not a big deal. It just gives me something tangible. Other things that help ground me are signing up for volunteer opportunities that I can do with friends, with my family. I feel like doing those things with others really helps build that sense of community, and you feel like you are doing something tangible that can help the greater community as well. Some other things are donating to the local food bank, other local nonprofits. I feel like that is a very tangible way to help people meet their needs and increase the reach to those who really need the assistance. So I think my purpose of sharing these tangible or touch grass type of moments with you is to share with you what grounds me, and maybe it gives you some ideas on what you can do to help ground yourself, to help yourself keep going, to help yourself connect with community. There are just so many ways that we can do something. And definitely when we feel the chaos, when we feel the noise, when it feels like it's too much, just pulling back and thinking, okay, I can do something. That can be enough to make you feel like, okay, I can do this. I matter. I am enough. I can still do something. So I'm hoping that comes across here on screen. I'm hoping that it helps you out just a little bit. I'm not assigning you homework because I'm not here to tell you what to do, what to make, all of that stuff. I would like to maybe plant a seed just to get you thinking about that, and maybe it'll inspire you to do just a little something. With that, cheers to being creative. I hope you're doing well, taking good care of yourselves, your loved ones, and your neighbors, and I will talk to you next time.